The final morning of the challenge arrived with alarms echoing through the abandoned levels. Jake woke to find Tom at the control panel tracking multiple system failures throughout the station. The Zephyrians had spent the night trying to repair damage from the power grid overload, but their heavy equipment was making everything worse. "Status report," Jake said while checking his gear. They had 6 hours left in the 48-hour challenge. "The Zephyrians are in serious trouble," Tom replied. 3 of their warriors are showing signs of exhaustion and dehydration. Their equipment has multiple failures, and War Commander Thraxul has been separated from his team. Lisa looked up from cleaning her weapon. "Separated how?" Tom brought up the motion sensors on his screen. There was a structural collapse in Section D12 around midnight. 4 warriors are trapped on one side. Thraxul is alone on the other side with the gravity field still fluctuating. Amanda finished analyzing air samples from different parts of the station. The environmental conditions are getting worse everywhere except in areas where we have restored life support. Carbon dioxide is building up, temperature control has failed in several sections, and water recycling has stopped working except for the plant Tom repaired. Jake studied the tactical situation. The Zephyrians were trapped, running out of supplies, and dealing with equipment failures. Their massive packs that had looked so impressive 2 days ago were now burdens that slowed them down and consumed resources they could not replace. But Jake also knew that desperate enemies were often the most dangerous. Thraxul was a proven warrior who would not give up easily even if his situation looked hopeless. "Tom, can you get visual on Thraxul's position?" The engineer worked his tablet controls. "There, Section D12 Junction 7. He's trying to move toward his warriors, but the gravity field keeps shifting. His armor weighs over 300 pounds. When gravity doubles, he can barely move." On the screen, they could see the war commander struggling with his own equipment. His massive pack had become a trap that pulled him toward the floor every time gravity increased. His armor that protected him from weapons now protected him from nothing while making every movement difficult. "He needs help," Amanda said after watching for several minutes. "His breathing is labored, signs of heat exhaustion. His armor's life support is probably failing along with everything else." Jake faced a difficult decision. They could wait for Thraxul to collapse from exhaustion and equipment failure. That would virtually guarantee human victory in the challenge, but it would also mean watching a fellow warrior suffer when they had the ability to help. "What are our advantages if we help him?" Lisa asked. Jake thought about it. "We show other species that humans help even enemies in trouble. We prove our equipment works better in crisis situations, and we demonstrate that being prepared means being ready for anything, including rescue operations." Tom looked worried. "But if we help him, he might continue the challenge. We could lose our advantage. Or we could show the entire galaxy what human values really mean," Jake replied. Jake made his decision. "We help him, but we do it our way using our equipment and our skills." They gathered their gear and moved through the maintenance tunnels toward Section D12. Jake's small pack contained rescue equipment that weighed less than 5 pounds, but could handle situations that required much larger tools in other species' kits. The emergency rope in Jake's pack was thin but could support 10 times his body weight. Lisa's multi-tool included cutting implements that could slice through metal. Tom's electronics kit could bypass security systems or restore power to critical areas. Amanda's medical supplies could treat injuries or environmental exposure. They reached the section where Thraxul was trapped. The Zephyrian commander was on his hands and knees struggling to reach a corridor that led toward his separated warriors. Every few minutes the gravity would shift and slam him against the floor or ceiling. "War Commander," Jake called through the maintenance grate. "We can help you reach your warriors." Thraxul looked up with confusion in his yellow eyes. "Why would humans help Zephyrian enemy?" "Because that is what prepared warriors do," Jake replied. "We help others who are in trouble." Jake's team worked with smooth efficiency. Tom restored power to the gravity controls in that section, stabilizing the field at normal Earth gravity. Lisa used her cutting tool to create a safe passage through debris that blocked Thraxul's path. Amanda provided medical treatment for the alien's heat exhaustion, using compact supplies that quickly restored his strength. Within 30 minutes, they had freed the war commander and guided him to a position where he could reunite with his warriors. Thraxul watched in amazement as the humans used their small, efficient equipment to solve problems that his massive gear could not handle. "Your packs," Thraxul said slowly. "They are not toys." "No," Jake replied. "They are tools chosen by warriors who understand that survival depends on intelligence, not just strength." Jake opened his pack and showed the contents to the alien commander. Water purification tablets that can clean any liquid, food that provides maximum nutrition with minimum weight, medicine that treats dozens of conditions, tools that serve multiple functions, communications equipment that works in any environment. Thraxul examined each item carefully. His expression changed as he realized what he was seeing. "Each piece serves many purposes. Everything we carry has been tested in real combat situations," Jake explained. "We learned that the best equipment is not the heaviest or most impressive. The best equipment is what keeps you alive and lets you complete your mission." Tom showed Thraxul how his tablet could control station systems, analyze technical problems, and communicate across vast distances while weighing less than 2 pounds. Amanda demonstrated how her medical kit could treat injuries that would require a full hospital in Zephyrian medicine. Lisa's weapon was smaller than Zephyrian sidearms but more accurate and reliable. "We mocked your preparation," Thraxul said quietly. "But you were prepared for things we never considered." The final hours of the challenge passed quickly. Both teams worked together to restore environmental systems and ensure everyone's safety. The Zephyrians learned how human equipment could accomplish more with less weight and complexity. The humans gained respect for Zephyrian strength and determination, even in difficult circumstances. When the 48 hours ended, both teams returned to the main station together. The crowds of alien observers who had expected to see defeated humans instead saw two groups working as allies. In the conference hall, Thraxul stood before the assembled delegates. His armor was damaged and his pack showed signs of hard use, but his voice carried new respect when he spoke. "The Zephyrian Empire has learned something important about human preparation," he announced. "We thought large packs meant better preparation. We thought heavy equipment meant superior capability. We were wrong." The war commander gestured toward Jake's team with their small black packs. "These humans carry more capability in their tiny packs than we carry in equipment 10 times larger. They prepared not just for combat, but for survival, rescue, and cooperation. They showed wisdom we did not understand." Murmurs spread through the audience as delegates realized what they were hearing. The mighty Zephyrian Empire was publicly acknowledging that humans had superior preparation and equipment philosophy. "The mining contracts in the outer sectors will be shared between our species," Thraxul continued. "Zephyrian strength combined with human intelligence will provide better protection than either species alone." Jake stood to address the gathering. "Commander Thraxul speaks with honor. This challenge taught both species that different kinds of preparation can work together. Size and strength have their place, but so do efficiency and adaptability." The trade representatives approved the new partnership agreement within hours, but more importantly, word spread quickly throughout the galaxy that humans were not the weak species many had assumed. Their small packs represented a sophisticated understanding of what real preparation meant. Over the following months, other species began requesting human military advisors and equipment consultants. The tiny pack philosophy became popular among explorer crews and emergency response teams throughout known space. Jake kept the same small black pack for his next mission, but now other species looked at it with respect instead of mockery. They had learned that the greatest strength often comes in the smallest packages, and that underestimating human ingenuity was a mistake no wise species made twice. War Commander Thraxul became one of humanity's strongest allies among alien species. He often told other warriors that the day he mocked human packs was the day he learned the difference between looking prepared and actually being prepared. The mining operations in the outer sectors became the most successful in galactic history. Zephyrian strength protected the miners while human intelligence made the operations efficient and profitable. Pirates quickly learned to avoid sectors where the two species worked together. Jake's small pack had proven that sometimes the most important victories come not from having the biggest weapons or the most supplies, but from understanding exactly what you need and being smart enough to use it properly. In a galaxy full of species trying to impress others with size and power, humans had shown that intelligence and preparation could overcome any CE. The morning sun made the water shine like glass. Jake Murphy stood with 40 other cadets on the rocky shore of Lake Drexus. The water stretched far beyond what his eyes could see. Small waves hit the rocks and made soft sounds. The air smelled like wet earth and strange flowers. Commander Vorthak stepped forward. His blue skin looked like metal in the sunlight. His forearms moved as he talked. The commander was tall, much taller than Jake. All the alien teachers at the academy were bigger than humans. Listen well, Commander Vorthak said. His voice was deep and loud. This is your final test for water survival class. You must cross this lake using only things you find on this shore. No tools from your ships, no help from others. You have 6 hours. Jake looked at the other cadets. There were Zeltrons with their green skin and long fingers. There were Corax with thick arms and no necks. The Aquids had gills on their necks and webbed feet. The miners had hard shells like rocks. Every species looked ready for this test except humans. If you fail, the commander said, you repeat the whole year. No second chances, no excuses. Begin now. The cadets spread out along the shore. Jake watched them run to different spots. The Zeltrons moved fast with their long legs. The Corax picked up heavy rocks right away. The Aquids jumped into the shallow water to test how deep it was. Jake walked slowly. He did not run like the others. His grandfather always told him to look before acting. Smart beats strong every time, boy, the old man used to say. The shore had many things. Big logs lay everywhere. Thick vines hung from tall trees. Rocks of all sizes covered the beach. Most cadets grabbed the biggest and strongest materials they could find. Cadet Nexus, a Korak with arms like tree trunks, picked up a log as thick as Jake's body. The alien threw it into the water. The log sank right away. Nexus made angry sounds and tried again with another log. That one sank too. 3. Zeltrons worked together. They tied logs with thick vines. Their long fingers moved fast as they built. Jake watched them push their boat into the water. It floated for 10 seconds, then broke apart. The logs rolled away in different directions. The Zeltrons had to swim back to shore. The Aquids had the best chance, Jake thought. They could breathe underwater and their webbed feet helped them swim. But even they struggled. Cadet Blux tried to make a raft from flat stones. The stones were too heavy. They pulled everything down to the bottom of the lake. Jake kept walking and watching. Every few minutes he heard splashing sounds and angry voices. Another boat had failed. Another cadet was swimming back to shore, defeated. The miners tried a different approach. They used their hard shells to break logs into smaller pieces. Then they tied the pieces together with vines. Their boat looked strong and solid. Jake watched them climb aboard. The boat held their weight for almost a minute. Then water started coming through the gaps. The vines were not tight enough. The miners had to abandon their sinking boat. Jake reached the far end of the shore. Here the beach was quieter. Fewer cadets had come this way. The trees were different too. Their bark was smooth and came off in big sheets. Jake touched one of the bark sheets. It felt flexible, like thick cloth. He looked back at the other cadets. Most were on their second or third attempt. Some sat on rocks, looking defeated already. The Corax were still trying to use brute strength. The Zeltrons had switched to smaller materials, but still could not make anything that stayed together in the water. Jake noticed something the others missed. The bark sheets had a natural curve. The trees grew in a way that made the bark bend, like the bottom of a bowl. Jake pulled off a large piece of bark. It was bigger than he was tall and still had its curved shape. The sound of more failures came from down the beach. Cadet Yorick, an Aquid, had tried to swim across while pulling a log. But the log was too big and heavy. It dragged him down. He had to let go and swim back. Jake found thin branches that bent without breaking. The other cadets had ignored these, looking for thick, strong wood instead. But Jake remembered building toy boats as a child. His father had shown him that the best boats moved with the water, not against it. The sun was higher now. Jake guessed 2 hours had passed. Most cadets looked tired and frustrated. Some sat in the shade, staring at the water like it was their enemy. Others kept trying the same failed approaches over and over. Jake gathered his materials slowly. The curved bark sheet would be his boat bottom. The thin branches would hold it together. He needed something to seal the gaps where pieces joined. Tree sap was sticky and waterproof when it dried. Cadet Zex, a miner, walked over to Jake. "Human," Zex said in his rocky voice. "Your materials are too weak. You need strong logs and thick rope." Jake looked at the pile of broken boats on the shore, all made from strong logs and thick rope. "Maybe," Jake said. "We will see." Zex made a sound like grinding stones and walked away. Jake continued gathering his materials. He was not in a hurry. The other cadets were learning that rushing led to mistakes. Jake would take his time and do it right the first time. The lake waited, calm and patient. It had defeated every attempt so far. But Jake studied the way small leaves floated on its surface, how they moved with the current instead of fighting it. Nature had lessons for those who took time to watch and learn. Jake sat on a smooth rock and laid the bark sheet in front of him. The curve was perfect, like someone had shaped it just for this purpose. He ran his hands along the edges, feeling for weak spots or tears. The bark was strong but flexible. It would bend without breaking. Around him, the sounds of failure continued. Splash, splash, angry voices swimming back to shore. Jake did not look up. He focused on his work. The bark sheet needed sides to keep water out. Jake selected the thinnest branches he could find. The other cadets had laughed at these twigs, but Jake knew better. Thin branches could bend into curves. Thick logs could only be straight. He began weaving the branches along the edges of the bark. His hands moved slowly and carefully. Each branch had to be placed just right. Too tight and the bark would tear. Too loose and water would get in. Cadet Vera, a Zeltron, stopped to watch. Her green skin was wet from her latest failed attempt. "Why do you work so slowly?" she asked. "Time is running out." Jake kept weaving. "My grandfather built boats," he said. "He taught me that patience makes better boats than speed." Vera tilted her long head. "Your grandfather was a boat maker? Like a job?" "No," Jake said. "Just for fun. Humans used to build boats from natural things before we had metal and machines." This seemed strange to Vera. Her people had always used advanced technology. They built starships that could cross galaxies, but they had never learned to work with simple materials like wood and bark. Jake reached the first corner of his boat. This was the hardest part. The branch had to curve around the corner without breaking. He bent it slowly, adding tree sap to help it stick to the bark. The sap was thick and sticky. It would dry hard and waterproof. More cadets gathered to watch. Most had given up on their own attempts and sat in the shade, defeated. But Jake's strange methods drew their attention. None of them had ever seen anyone work this way. "He is building, like a living thing," whispered Cadet Thok, a miner. "See how it bends and flows?" Jake heard the comment but did not respond. He was working on the second corner now. The pattern was becoming clear. Instead of forcing materials into unnatural shapes, he was letting them keep their natural curves and strengths. The Korax had tried to make straight square boats, but water flows in curves, not straight lines. The Zeltrons had built tall, narrow boats that tipped over easily. The miners had made heavy boats that sank right away. Jake's boat was wide and low. It would sit on the water like a leaf, spreading its weight over a large area. The curved bottom would cut through waves smoothly. The flexible sides would move with the water instead of fighting it. Commander Vorthak walked over to observe. His forearms crossed as he watched Jake work. The commander had seen many species try this test. Most used brute force and advanced engineering concepts, but humans seemed different. "Explain your method, Cadet Murphy," the commander said. Jake looked up from his work. "My people lived on a world with many lakes and rivers. We learned to work with water, not against it. Water is patient but strong. It always wins if you fight it. The commander's blue face showed interest. Your species developed water transportation early in your evolution? Yes, sir. We built boats before we built cities. Before we had metal, we used wood and animal skins. We learned by trying many times and watching what worked. Jake returned to his boat building. The sides were almost finished. The bark held its curved shape perfectly. The thin branches created a framework that was strong but not rigid. Everything worked together like parts of one living system. Cadet Nexus, the strong Korak, pointed at Jake's boat. It looks too weak. One wave will destroy it. Jake pressed on the side of his boat. It bent inward, then sprang back to its original shape. Weak things that bend can be stronger than hard things that break, he said. This confused most of the watching cadets. Their engineering training taught them that strength came from rigid materials and solid construction. They built starships from metal and energy fields. Everything was designed to resist force and maintain shape. But Jake's boat was designed to accept force and change shape. When waves hit it, the boat would rise and fall with them. When currents pushed it, the boat would flow with them while still maintaining direction. Jake began sealing the joints where branches met bark. He mixed tree sap with mud to make a paste that filled small gaps. The mixture was waterproof when it dried, but it stayed flexible. Metal joints would be stronger, but they would also be rigid. If one joint failed, the whole structure would fail. Jake's joints could stretch and move. If one joint weakened, the others would share the load. The whole boat would adapt to damage and keep working. The sun reached its highest point. Half the time was gone. Most cadets had made 4 or 5 attempts and failed each time. Some lay in the shade, exhausted. Others stared at the water with angry expressions. Jake tested his boat by pressing down on different spots. The bark flexed, but did not crack. The branches bent, but did not break. The joints stretched, but did not separate. Everything moved together like one piece. It needs a way to steer, Jake said to himself. The other cadets had tried to make rudders from thick wood and metal pieces they found. But thick rudders required strong force to turn them. They also created resistance that slowed the boats down. Jake walked to the water's edge. Small plants grew in the shallow areas. Their leaves were broad and thin. When the current moved them, they twisted and turned but did not tear. They moved with the water flow, not against it. Jake picked one of the largest leaves. It was as big as his hand and shaped like a paddle, but it was thin and flexible, not thick and rigid like the rudders the other species had tried to make. Several cadets laughed when they saw the leaf. "A leaf for steering," Cadet Bluck said. "That will last 10 seconds in the water." Jake smiled but said nothing. He had learned not to argue with those who could not see beyond their own experience. The proof would come when his boat sailed across the lake while theirs sank to the bottom. The boat was almost ready. Jake had spent 3 hours building it, while others had made multiple quick attempts. But his boat was solid and complete. Theirs were broken pieces floating in the shallow water. Jake held the large leaf up to the light. Its surface was smooth and waxy. Water would roll off it instead of soaking through. The leaf's stem was tough but flexible. It could bend without breaking, just like the branches of his boat. The other cadets gathered closer to watch. They had never seen anyone use a plant leaf as a boat part. In their worlds, technology meant metal and energy. Plants were just decorations or food. "The human has lost his mind," Cadet Zek said in his grinding voice. "Plants cannot steer boats." Jake found a straight branch as long as his arm. He split one end carefully with a sharp rock. The split wood opened like fingers. Jake slipped the leaf stem into the split and wrapped it tight with thin strips of bark. Tree sap held everything together. The result looked simple: a leaf attached to a stick. But Jake tested the movement, turning the leaf back and forth. It moved smoothly in all directions. The flexible connection let the leaf adjust to water pressure. Instead of fighting it, Cadet Vera came closer. Her long green fingers touched the leaf rudder. "This feels so fragile," she said. "How can it control a boat?" Jake dipped the leaf in the shallow water and moved it slowly. The water flowed around the leaf's curved surface. "It does not control the water," Jake said. "It works with the water to guide the boat." This concept was hard for the alien cadets to understand. Their ships used powerful thrusters to force movement through space. They pushed against physics with raw energy. The idea of working with natural forces instead of overpowering them was foreign. Jake attached the leaf rudder to the back of his boat. He made sure it could turn easily but would not fall off. The attachment point was flexible like everything else on the boat. If something hit the rudder hard, it would bend instead of breaking the boat. Commander Vorthak walked around Jake's finished boat. His 4 hands touched different parts, testing the construction. The bark hull curved like a smile. The branch framework bent under pressure but sprang back. The leaf rudder twisted and turned like a living thing. "Most interesting," the commander said. "Your construction follows no engineering principles we teach at the academy." Jake looked up from checking his boat one final time. "My species learned different principles, sir. We learned from millions of years of watching nature. Water, wind, plants, and animals taught us how to build things that work with the world instead of against it." The commander made notes on his electronic pad. This was exactly the kind of thinking the academy wanted to encourage. Too many graduates relied only on technology and force. They never learned to adapt and improvise. Other cadets continued to watch Jake's preparations. Some tried to copy his methods with their remaining time. Cadet Nexus attempted to peel bark from a tree, but his thick fingers and raw strength tore it into useless pieces. The Zeltrons tried to weave thin branches, but they worked too fast and broke half of them. Jake pushed his boat to the water's edge. The bark bottom slid smoothly over the wet rocks. When the boat touched the lake, it sat on the surface like it belonged there. Water did not leak through the sealed joints. The boat rocked gently with the small waves, but stayed stable. The watching. Cadets grew quiet. Every boat they had built either sank immediately or broke apart within minutes. But Jake's boat floated perfectly, looking ready for a long journey. Jake climbed carefully into the boat. He moved slowly to keep his weight balanced. The bark flexed under him but held firm. He settled into the bottom of the boat and picked up his paddle, another piece of shaped bark attached to a branch handle. "The test requires crossing the entire lake," Commander Vorthak announced. "The far shore is 12 kilometers away. Weather conditions may change during the crossing." Jake nodded and dipped his paddle into the water. The boat moved forward smoothly. The curved bottom cut through the water with little resistance. The flexible construction absorbed the small waves instead of fighting them. Behind him, Jake heard splashing and frustrated voices as other cadets made desperate final attempts. But their boats failed just like all the others. Heavy materials sank. Rigid construction broke under stress. Thick rudders created drag that slowed them down or pulled them off course. Jake tested his leaf rudder as he moved away from shore. A gentle turn to the left and the leaf angled to catch the current. The boat curved smoothly in that direction. A turn to the right, and the boat responded just as well. The leaf moved like part of the water itself. Cadet Blux, the Equid, swam out beside Jake's boat. "How does that leaf not break?" he called out, his gills fluttering as he spoke. Jake slowed his paddling to answer. "Thick rudders fight the water. This leaf bends with the water. It uses the current strength to help steer, not fight against it." Blux swam alongside for a few more minutes, studying the leaf rudder in action. The thin plant material twisted and flexed with every small current and wave. But instead of being damaged by these forces, the leaf used them to maintain direction and control. "Remarkable," Blux said before turning back toward shore. "Your species thinks very differently than ours." Jake was now 100 meters from shore. His boat moved steadily forward, the leaf rudder keeping him on course toward the distant shore. The other cadets looked small on the beach behind him. Most had given up trying and sat watching his progress. The lake stretched ahead, calm and blue under the afternoon sun. Jake settled into a steady paddling rhythm. His boat rode the gentle swells like a living creature. Every part of it moved and adapted to the water's motion. This was what his grandfather had tried to teach him years ago. "Work with the world, boy, not against it. The world is stronger than you, but it will help you if you listen to what it wants." Jake listened to the water sounds around his boat. The gentle splash of his paddle, the soft whisper of water flowing along the bark hull, the quiet flutter of the leaf rudder adjusting to each small current. Everything worked together, in harmony. Human engineering at its most basic and most effective. Jake Morrison stepped off the transport ship and looked up at the biggest building he had ever seen. The Galactic Academy of Sciences stretched into the purple sky of Xerion Prime, like a mountain made of glass and metal. Thousands of windows caught the light from 3 different suns, making the whole structure shine like a giant crystal. He pulled his old backpack higher on his shoulders and walked toward the main entrance. The bag contained everything he owned. Some clothes, a few books from Earth, and a small box of protein bars his grandmother Betty had made for him before he left home. She had packed them carefully in wax paper, telling him they would keep him strong during his journey to the stars. Jake was nervous. He was only 18 years old and had never been away from Earth before. Now he was standing on a planet 200 light-years from home, about to attend the most famous school in the galaxy. Only 3 humans had ever been accepted to the academy. Jake was the 4th. The entrance hall was full of students from different worlds. Jake saw tall, thin beings with blue skin talking in musical voices, creatures that looked like walking. Crystals moved past him, their bodies making soft, chiming sounds with each step. A group of students covered in thick fur were laughing at something, their voices deep and rumbling. Jake felt very small and very human. "You must be the new Earth student," said a voice behind him. Jake turned around and saw a creature that looked like it was made of living rock. It had 6 arms and eyes that glowed with soft golden light. "I am Veltor from the Andromedan Collective. I am assigned to be your dormitory companion." "Nice to meet you," Jake said, trying not to stare. "I'm Jake Morrison." "Jake Morrison," Veltor repeated, practicing the human sounds. "Come, I will show you to our living space." They walked through long hallways filled with more alien students than Jake could count. Some floated in the air instead of walking. Others moved on many legs or slithered along the smooth floors. Jake realized he was probably the strangest looking, being here to most of them. Their room was on the 15th floor of the student housing tower. It was bigger than Jake's bedroom back on Earth, with 2 sleeping areas and a small kitchen space. One sleeping area had a bed designed for humans. The other had what looked like a pile of smooth rocks where Veltor would rest. "The Academy provides all nutrition through the food replication systems," Veltor explained, pointing to a silver machine built into the wall. "You simply request what your species requires and the machine creates it." Jake nodded and unpacked his few belongings. He put his grandmother's protein bars in the small storage unit next to his bed. That evening, Jake tried the food replicator. For dinner, he asked for a hamburger and fries, something simple from Earth. The machine hummed and produced what looked like the right food, but when Jake tasted it, something was wrong. The burger was flavorless, like eating cardboard. The fries were soft and had no taste at all. "Is the food always like this?" Jake asked Veltor, who was consuming some kind of glowing liquid from the same machine. "The replicators have been producing inferior nutrition for several months," Veltor admitted. "The academy administrators claim there are no problems, but many students feel weak and tired. My own energy levels have decreased by 30%. Jake pushed the fake hamburger away and opened his storage unit. He pulled out one of his grandmother's protein bars and took a bite. The familiar taste of honey, nuts, and something he couldn't quite identify filled his mouth. It was real food, made with real ingredients. "What is that?" Veltor asked, his golden eyes focusing on the brown bar in Jake's hand. "It's a protein bar. My grandmother made it." Jake broke off a piece and offered it to his roommate. "Want to try some?" Veltor took the piece carefully with one of his stone fingers and examined it. "It appears to be composed of organic materials in their natural state. Yeah, it's got nuts and honey and some other stuff. My grandma grows crickets in her backyard and grinds them up for protein. She also uses dandelion leaves from her garden." Veltor's eyes grew brighter. "Crickets are earth insects, correct? And dandelions are plants considered undesirable by your species." "That's right. Most people think dandelions are weeds, but they're actually really good for you. And crickets have more protein than beef." Veltor placed the piece of protein bar in what Jake assumed was his mouth, though it was hard to tell exactly where that was on his rocky face. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Veltor's entire body began to glow with a soft golden light. "This is remarkable," Veltor said, his voice full of wonder. "I can feel energy flowing through my mineral matrix in ways I have not experienced in months. The biological compounds are being absorbed directly into my system." Jake smiled. "My grandma always said real food gives you real energy." "Your grandmother is a wise being," Veltor said. "This simple organic mixture has provided me with more usable nutrition than the replicators have given me in weeks." Jake looked at the box of remaining protein bars, and then at his roommate, who was still glowing with renewed energy. Maybe his grandmother's simple recipes could help other students too. Maybe being human at an alien academy wouldn't be so bad after all. Outside their window, the three suns of Xerion Prime set in different colors, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Jake ate another protein bar and felt ready for whatever tomorrow would bring.